Join us.
What up? Welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones, and in this one, let's go ahead and add another figure to our DC Multiverse collection. Now, this is another page puncher, an offshoot of the DC Multiverse from McFarlane. This one is under the banner of DC Direct, but they do scale nicely with the rest of your DC Multiverse collection. Now, I already looked at John Constantine, Black Adam, and now we will be taking a look at Superman. Now, these are based upon the art of the comic book that comes with each figure. Now, I will not show the comic book again because the same comic came with all 4 figures. But I have been pleasantly surprised by these. Now, he does look pretty lean in the packaging, so let's go ahead and take a look at him. But first, he does come with a clear DC Multiverse flight stand. Now, you should pretty much know how these work. You clip this into here and put it together. But pretty cool that they included a flight stand with this one. He also comes with his page puncher card. On the front, it's the same image of the comic. And on the back, you do have some information. Pretty sweet. We'll add it to the collection. Now, this one does come with alternate hands, but they are some pretty ginormous sized hands. They just look big right away just by taking a look at them, but we'll see how that coincides with the figure. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at them. All right, first impressions. Really loving the physique of this guy, a little bit more leaner upper body, but the lower body still has some good sized legs. The color scheme is a little bit darker, more drab of a blue, but it is something different. Of course, if we end up having 20 Superman, I would like each to have its own distinctive color, not just rehash the baby blue over and over or just the bright blue. It's fine to see a different color scheme. Now let's take a closer look at the head. I'm actually liking this head sculpt. I've heard a couple of people complain about this as well, but it's just a different take on Superman. He still has a little curl there, and his hair is kind of looks like he's flying, so it's kind of good because you could get him in some different poses. But all in all, I am liking this kind of gaunt look for Superman. Like I say, it's just something different, and not necessarily that I love it, but it does not bother me that much. Let's take a look at the articulation now. He looks up really well, and that is without modding him. He's going to be perfect for some flight poses. Can look down pretty well. You have your basic right to left, and you can cock his head for some attitude. Pretty nice. Let's take a look at the emblem. Now, this is a far different emblem than any of the other Superman shields we've seen. It has a kind of like raised part of it, and it's really, really embossed and sculpted differently. Instead of just being like a flat shield, it kind of has some depth to it, so that's pretty interesting. So I'm really digging the shield, and also the lean sculpt of the chest. Really nice. Let's take a look at the waist. Now, he does have side to side. He does have full range of motion at the waist. He does have a lower waist swivel, an upper chest swivel, and you can twist him, get him in some cool poses. Now, he has a little bit of crunch, not too much, but there's some there. And then leaning back is probably his best area. Get him in some pretty cool flight poses. Awesome. Let's take a look at the shoulder. He has the McFarlane faux butterfly shoulder joint, up and down, front to back. Bicep swivel. double jointed elbows. Not too pretty, but they'll do. And then going down into the forearm, he has a pretty nice sculpted cuff on his suit, and it transitions into a dark ball joint, which can work, but sometimes it's better to have a flesh color. Like I've said before, it just depends how your eye sees it, because I've changed some into flesh and they look worse, and I've changed some actually into dark and it looks a lot better. So it just depends what you really prefer. And then let's look at these big old hands. He does have wrist articulation. And there's something rather interesting, I gotta say. A lot of people have been complaining that the fists are way too big. And I kind of concur with them at first glance, because when they're put like this on his side, they just look really big. If you want to put him like in a flight pose with his fist forward, the optical illusion of the depth of it, the perception, it's weird because the fists do not look big at all. In fact, they look perfectly sized compared to his face and body, but he has to be like coming at you like this. So I don't know if the I don't know if the sculptors like took it quite literally to copy the image from the comic, because this is how he is kind of in the on the cover of the comic. But it really works like this. It's kind of weird, because if you put his hands next to his head, they look pretty ginormous. But if you put them down lower and then outstretch one and put them like in a flying pose, it's just less. It doesn't look the same anymore, which is kind of weird, and it says a lot about the depth perception of these hands, that it's just kind of out of the ordinary. That they do look big at a certain point, but then if you pose them in a different way, they kind of like look perfect. So I was really ready to change the hands out and do some hand swapping, but I kind of do not want to do that anymore, because the hands are kind of interesting. But we shall see. It just depends on what you want to do with it. I do have tons of extra hands that we could actually put on there. In fact, let's go ahead and pop off the fist and put in the flying hand. But no, yeah, these look really big, the same. But let's look at it in a flying pose and see what I mean. Now the depth has changed and it does not look bad at all. But it's kind of sad, because you'd have to have them, posed like this in your display always. You couldn't just have them standing, because then he has those big gigantic hands. But it is a rather interesting phenomenon. I did not expect this when I was going to look at this figure, but for right now the hands are staying, so that's rather interesting. You can get the T pose, and even a bit higher you could get a little bit of Y pose, and then of course his arms outstretched up for the flying poses perfectly, added with the head and the waist articulation. I mean, what more would you want in a flying character? Pretty nice. Let's go down to the trunks. Now the trunks are awesome. They're their own design. Kind of gives me like a Brandon Roth Superman Returns vibe. The whole suit actually kind of gives me that vibe. But they're sculpted really nicely, and it's nice to see a completely different design of the trunks. Now he can kick up forward, and he can kick back really high. Now this is allowed by the rubber of the trunks that lets you manipulate the legs and then put them back to their original position. Let's check out the thigh swivel. It's there. It's not as good as the other two figures, but it does have some range. You can cock out his leg. He has that pretty sweet hip swivel. Double jointed knees, a little bit tight there, but they are beautifully designed. They don't stick out the way the elbow does. Straighten them out. Down to the ankle, you have up, down, right to left, ankle rocker, and toe articulation. Actually, this Superman is kind of surprising me, because I was ready to not like it, but I'm kind of really enjoying messing around with him and moving him around. Let's take a look at the lower legs before we go. Now these ankle joints are beautifully sculpted. They kind of have a little bit of design where you actually have to fit it just right, and it, looks, doesn't break up the sculpt. It looks like smooth, but as soon as you turn it a little, you can see where that ankle moves around. But all in all, really nice. Nice to see a completely different sculpt of the boots as well. And on the legs, you do have a lot of little wrinkles and textures and stitching even, which is really, really above and beyond. Now let's take a look at the, wow, this is really interesting. This is one of the first times that I see treads on the bottom of a Superman boot. And I'm a sucker for treads. I just love boot tread. It's just something like a detail that I've always liked. And what's interesting is it even has a Superman symbol down there. And I've really never seen that. I mean, I don't know, you could go back to the older, maybe even the Return of Superman figures, and they have that, but as far as I know, I never really seen that. So that's really cool. Lift up the cape and going up the back, it's pretty smooth sculpt work, clean and simple lines, but you get all the definition in the suit and up the back. Now this cape is another thing. It's kind of weird. It has a weird flow to it, like if he's flying or like if there's a lot of wind. And it's kind of soft, but it is a little bit heavy. And of course there's no yellow S in the back. But all in all, really interesting Superman figure. Kind of interested to see what everybody else's final opinion will be of this guy. He's pretty easy to stand. I did not struggle at all. So that's another plus for him. So before we go, let's go ahead and take a look at him next to some other Superman figures. Let's do one of my favorites, my custom Superboy Prime. Actually looks really good. There's something familiar in between them two, like something distinctive that looks the same. And then let's take a look at him next to my custom baby blue Superman. Nice to see the different, thickness of physiques. Pretty cool. And then let's take a look at him next to the other page puncher that I reviewed, and that was Black Adam. Now these actually look really good together. They're just fitting in really well. And you know what? For a bonus, let's go ahead and try some head swapping, because there's just something about that Superboy Prime head that I want to see on this guy. So let's go ahead and try it out. And the thing is that body is so slender and the suit is its own unique sculpt that if you were to paint this like a bright baby blue, it would be the perfect Superboy. Of course, you'd have to change the skin tones and the hands would have to be switched for smaller hands. But it just gives me that Superboy vibe. I'd probably even change the cape, but I might be interested into doing that. And then let's try him with the Rebirth Superman head. It's kind of chunky, so you don't want to push it down all the way. You want to leave it up a little bit on the neck. But it could work. It's a stretch, but not too bad. And then something I've really been dying to try, because I have an idea, like a vision in my head. And let's go ahead and try this, and it's going to be the Worlds of War Superman head on this body. And yeah, this is giving me evil Superman vibes from Superman 3, where they fight in the junkyard, or where he, goes all crazy. For some reason, this just reminds me of that, that that look for Superman, like kind of darker colored and with a 5 o'clock shadow and just looking kind of demented. So yeah, actually, I really like this. This is Stuff of Nightmares. Pretty cool. Anyways, guys, kind of on the fence about this figure. He is pretty cool, but some people might not like the big hands and the color scheme and the head sculpt. But a lot of good things come out of him, like the different boots, the costume design. The articulation is really good, especially for fight poses. But all in all, it's up to you if you want to go ahead and pick them up. I would recommend it. but only if you want just a completely different version of Superman. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.